Okay, here we are in week 6. Last year we found our way through the early Holocene with the Neolithic coming into existence and people learning how to grow plants and how to grow animals to their purposes rather than hunting and gathering like our uh, Pleistocene subjects would have done. Now this week we want to turn our attention to the later part of the Holocene, from about 5,000 BC to the present. And during this time, there's a great global climate struggle going on because, curiously enough, people are trying to keep a world warm that wants to go back into another ice age. And it's that ice age that causes a lot of trouble, and like I mentioned last time, people started wearing wool instead of flax clothing in the extratropics and other things are just going on that tell us that yes, the world is moving toward a colder condition. Not the least among these is a lot of warfare. Early Holocene seems to have been peaceful in some respects, but there are plenty of inter-village warfare going on, but nothing like the giant wars of the late Holocene. But what comes along in the late Holocene is that people start to live in larger and larger communities, and so we way bypass the 500-person villages of the Neolithic and move on rather suddenly about 3 to 4,000 BC toward cities. Uruk is in Mesopotamia, which is where Iraq is now. It's often billed as the oldest city in the world, but that may or may not be. Like I said before, the world warmed up after about 14,000 years ago, and the Neolithic came along, and it came along kind of suddenly and on a worldwide basis. And then about 5,000 years ago, the same thing happens with cities. And what is the reason for that? Well, up until about 5,000 BC or 7,000 years ago, the sea level was still rising, the glaciers were still melting, and so things are kind of climatically unstable and different. But after that time, the scene changes to this clearly late Holocene world in which ocean levels are up to near their present levels, and the orientation is no longer toward the interior of continents to go hunting, but it's toward the oceans to go fishing. And great amounts of fish are caught in early urban communities, which require these fishing-oriented subsistence patterns to make a lot of people. Our brains are made out of fish, basically. Omega-3 fats that occur in. As a matter of fact, a certain molecule of omega-3 fats that occur in fish. And very soon, the societies outstrip the ability of kinship organization to govern them, and so they start moving on to kings and very, very large bureaucracies, all of those things that make up cities. Then technology starts to go forward in different parts of the world at great speed, sometimes in very, very different directions. And very interestingly, in the Paleolithic and in the Neolithic, we we kind of see pictures or statues of people. But in the Urbanic period, the late Holocene, we start to hear people. The earliest epic that we have written down that has a narrative style about it rather than just writing for record keeping is Gilgamesh from Mesopotamia. And it was probably Gilgamesh was a king who lived in Mesopotamia about 2800 BC, and he lived on a legend for 1,000 years, and then around 1800 BC it finally got written down in the form that we see it now, that was recovered from cuneiform tablets in Mesopotamia in several different cities and several different versions. It has a lot of things that are familiar to readers of the Bible in it, like a Noah story, and it's really a myth about how Gilgamesh was kind of an overriding and unpleasant person, and he went and visited all parts of the world and did all kinds of things and came back a changed person and a better king. And undoubtedly in these early societies where autocratic monarchs came along and ruled with an iron hand, there was probably a lot of that kind of mythologizing going on to make sure that kings didn't overextend their power, and a lot of them did anyway. Anyway, read your lessons, take to the roads of the world of urbanization, and grasp some understanding of these deep histories of cities and what we hear from the people who spoke in those times down the millennia to us.